Welcome to the 100th Monkey Radio with Tom and LFE. We are making this video to let you guys know of some changes that we're making at the beginning of this year. We're kind of getting rid of our subscription system and, going to kind of an honor system as far as that energetic exchange that we need to happen with the show. I mean, the show's been paying for itself for the last 7 years, and through the subscription system. But I want to get this material out to more people. Yeah. I want more people to have access to that second hour, and not feel obligated to subscribe for a monthly subscription or whatever. I think it's a necessary part of this evolution that we're going through that there's an energetic exchange of some kind.
Yeah.
And frankly, we need something to be able to keep the show going. I mean, it does cost some money. Yeah. I mean, it costs, several $1,000s to keep what we're doing going every year.
Yeah, not counting the time that we put in.
Yeah, not timing the time and effort and energy that we spend on a weekly basis bringing this stuff to you guys. So, there has to be some kind of energetic exchange. And we decided we're going to put it on this format because, number one, we want more people to have access to the second hour content. And, number two, I've got faith in my fellow man.
Yeah.
I know that our listeners out there are going to step up to the plate and cover our bases for us.
Yeah.
I mean, just take a look at our archives and all the different people that we've had through the last 7 years. I mean, we've had there's some amazing shows there. So if there's going to be a donate or a subscription tab that's with every one of these shows, and we expect everybody to do one of two things. They're either going to help us out financially, or they're going to pay it forward in some form or fashion. Yeah. And whether it's passing this stuff off to somebody else or doing some, helping a lady across the street, whatever it happens to be. So the tabs, the subscription format's still going to be available if you want to make like a monthly donation. If you want to make something that's recurring, that's awesome. That helps us out tremendously. Or if you want to just make a one-time donation, that's always available too.
Yeah. And it's up to you how much you want to donate. I mean, if you could afford $1, $1 helps. If
exactly,
if 1,000 people donate $1, I mean that'll get us a long ways. And not only in the show, but in the whole background of doing the show. With our computer work and the editing and the software and hardware we need. And the upgrades to the technology we need.
Right.
to help the show along. $1's not. Not too much, but I mean, even if it's not $1, just like Tom was saying, pay it forward. Give it to somebody else. Spread the information you learn, or share the shows on Facebook or something like that. Let's get this information out there, and especially with the second hour, like we really get into a lot of meat and potatoes with the second hour. I mean, the first hour is kind of our warm up hour, and the second hour is where we really get into it. So we really want that second hour to be out there for everybody to listen to and to absorb that information.
Yeah, we've got WordPress on the website, so what I think initially what we're going to do is we're going to stick up a comment section on the main page, a WordPress comment section, or at least a link to the WordPress comment section where people can go and drop their comments or suggestions or whatever. If you want somebody specific, us to get somebody specific on the show.
Yeah.
It's great for us to hear that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Any comments or suggestions,
Yeah. Or if you check the website and you see an upcoming guest that we're going to have, feel free to email us specific questions you have for that guest. And we'll try to work them into the first or second hour. Or if you have ideas for guests that we should have on the show, email us that too.
Good stuff. We're going to also be adding in the info tab underneath this second hour that you're about to listen to. There's also a link there, direct email to the info@the100thmonkeyradio.com if you want to just drop us an email. So, all right, guys. Well, I want to thank everybody for all the years of support that they've given us, and To our current subscribers, the choice is yours on whether or not you leave your subscription as is and continue the recurring stuff, or whether you drop that. I mean, this is, it's all up to you guys. So we thank you for your continued support, and man, on with the show, right?
Yeah, on with the show.
All right. Namaste, my friend. Welcome to the 100th Monkey Radio with Tom and LFE. We are recording this on November 23rd of 2015, and what a crazy world. I mean, This is an interesting place to be. I mean, especially coming from a more aware perspective now, where with so many of us are growing up and seeing the world in a completely different light, and the way events play out on the planet, and what the events that are playing out off the planet, inside the planet, inside us. It's just a different world from that place.
Yeah, and we're seeing many different layers, and for those of us who are seeing, who are able to see past the mainstream, we are seeing all these different layers in these different situations that are occurring, throughout the world right now. And
when I see all this stuff happening on such a consistent and regular daily basis, there's one drama or trauma or another happening. That boy who cried wolf syndrome pops into my head. And as so many of us are growing, and with, greater knowledge comes greater responsibility, and along with that comes our own greater personal power to do things on this planet. How many of us are not sending energy where it needs to go because we've looked at these things and been poisoned by the false flags and the manipulations that are out there, and we've kind of put a stopper on our intention and where to put our energy, and maybe it's a confusion we get on what is the right place to put our energy.
Or just a hopeless feeling on is my energy even going to have any sort of effect anyways?
Right, exactly. So, it just makes me question things like, are there masters out there on the planet now that are waking up or in the wake-up state, that have these, the ability to reach out with their own energy patterns to initiate great change on this planet? We've talked to a lot of people on this show, and we brought back with us tonight one of our guests that he is definitely making a huge difference out there, waking people up and just doing some amazing work. And I have yet to find anything that he's talked about that has not made complete sense to me.
Yeah.
So we've got Franco DeNicola back with us, and we've had him on several times before, so I'm not going to give you guys any lengthy bio. I think that was perfect. And welcome back to the 100th Monkey Radio, Franco.
Well, thank you for having me back, guys. It's always a pleasure to to connect and play with you guys. And I love the fact of the depth of understanding and the level of communication that we have, and of course what you're sharing with all your audience. I mean, absolutely a pleasure all the time.
Yeah. You know, with the events that have been happening here recently, you know, the Paris bombing, that one really, there's a disturbing part, a really interesting energy that I'm getting from that whole event over there that's different from, you know, all the other, events. I'll put it that way, both, you know, real and fake, that have happened here in the last few years. This one has a completely different flavor to me. I don't know I can't put my finger on it, but have you sensed anything out of that yourself?
Well, it is different in a way because of the people involved, where it's located, how people are responding to it, how the media is playing with it. What's happening is that when it happens in the States, and that's been happening in the States, time to time, it's a whole different energy there. And the people there are kind of, how can I say, they have a different way to engage in it versus how it's engaged in the European countries and specifically in Paris. It seems like it's almost more at home. And, it almost gives it even much more powerful realism, if you want to call it that, even though it is kind of staged in many aspects. But it is a very different energy to it. And, of course, there's a different calling for it because most of the stuff that was happening on other areas, say United States, was with a different agenda. Okay, yes, bringing in martial law, yes, disarming people, taking their weapons away, yes, to create reasons to police and surveillance everybody and to categorize everybody and so forth. But this one in Paris is actually to kind of stimulate an instability within the countries, within the fact of trying to stimulate a possible, civil war or something of that nature. So that's why it's different. It has a different intent. There's, of course, a specific group, ICE, that is being, labeled as, they're the culprit. And of course, that now involves more than what would be localized. It would be much more, on a larger scale because of, what's taking place.
Right.
So it is a different way that it's been staged and has a different purpose. And the people are responding and feeling different of it because it's almost like it's become cool in, say, North America versus happening in Europe, or specifically in Paris or even in some of those European countries, depending on which country it is, that it has much more impact. Plus, Paris represents something too in the world scale of things because it has a very different energy in itself and what it represents.
It's the city of love.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. That's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
And so when it happens in a place like that, it has a more impact. And what it does, I'm sure you've noticed it, it stirs a lot of different emotions.
Yeah.
Right.
For people. Because even at the other places, there's that judgment, resentment, and so forth. Here, it's not so much that. It's more of the energy is sadness. The energy is, coming to a point where you feel, why is this even happening? An energy where you're almost trying to break what's already established there, like you said, the city of love and so forth. So there's a whole different mixed energy and emotion involved in that particular event. It was perfectly constructed and staged anyways to occur there rather than somewhere else because of its impact, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Right. Yeah, and I also really, when I first heard about it, it goes hand in hand with the Syrian refugees. And it's like now, in the media and in Facebook and in social media, there's I can see this straight divide between people who are for Syrian refugees and people who are against Syrian refugees. So it's almost like it was orchestrated and, partly an attempt to,
be divisive.
Yeah, put that divide in between us and these people and these humans that, really do need help, and, who are just innocent bystanders in the whole thing. And now, we're judging all these, men, women, and children who are coming into these different countries. And, here in America, I mean, there's so many people that are saying, oh, we're not going to allow them in here. And, I mean, civilians are, talking a lot of shit and saying, Syrian refugees can go anyplace else besides here. But yet the government is still, saying, yes, we'll take them, we'll take them. So I can see it drawn a whole bunch of different dividing lines.
Correct. Yes. Yes, exactly. And the thing is, too, the fact is, okay, here we are taking on refugees. Well, there's a risk involved with it, and our security's breached now, or in some way we have no way to manage it. And then you have a scapegoat. You have to blame somebody, right?
Right.
Sort of thing with what's playing out. But again, when you look at the big stage of things, this is kind of orchestrated in such a way to kind of bring even much more insanity viewpoint of how we're playing the game.
Yeah, well,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, well, it just kind of also makes me think, over the last 6-8 months now, there's been this thing on Facebook, where it's like black versus white and white versus black, cops beating up black people, yada yada yada, right? And it didn't seem like, I mean, that made a little bit of headway, but not too much, it didn't ruffle the pot too much. So now we're getting into something even bigger. So now, instead of black versus white, now it's American versus refugees.
Right.
Correct.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So what about the other side of the coin? I mean, I know I'm a firm knower that everything happens for a reason.
Correct.
And that there's a big script of some form that is laid out on this planet for all of us. And I have to, when I look at events like this, and, it's hard to find the silver lining at times, but it's really, really cool when you do, especially if it evades you for a while. But I'm wondering what kind of positive effects come out of events like these.
Well, the purpose of all of this, if you're looking at the big picture, if you're looking at the natural design of all of this, it's really basically to push people even further and further into so-called chaotic state, so that in essence you come to a point and you're forced to wake up in a way. It's because you have to look at it. Most of all these, false flags and different events that occur and so forth doesn't have the same impact it used to years ago. Because the fact is people's consciousness is shifting. They're becoming much more aware, and they're starting to realize what's going on. And this is not unexpected, and I'm not saying specifically Paris. I mean anything, really, at this point in time. It's not unexpected because, in essence, what's the best way to push people to create a shift within themselves in the way they see the world and how we act with one another than to bring so much chaos to the point, and when I say chaos, it's going to be sort of organized chaos, in a way where you finally get to see and say, wow, this is incredible. And we're still doing this? Like, really? And do we need to, buy into this, or can we actually shift all of this? And first will be the response of, the fear and so forth, because the control structure would like to push that. But then it comes to the realization, and this is what's happening. It's another wake-up call for people to kind of see and say, what's really happening here? What's going on, rather than what I'm being told? And what's the big picture here? And you also see the way people get pushed around when any of the stuff like martial law and everything else that starts to change. People start to get pushed off the streets and so forth, and their freedoms start to become eliminated or reduced greatly. Then they start to feel it much more intensely and come to the realization, wait a minute, it doesn't really have to be this way. And why do we need to do it in the way that we are doing it? And it's really a wake-up call. So in essence, it's not a surprise that we are going through this, and there's going to be more. I'm not saying in the bombing scenario or anything of that nature, but other forms of chaos or chaotic states. It's really there to jar people out of their complacency, and also get them out of their natural pattern, or what adopted pattern, because it's not a natural pattern, adopted pattern of living life by the way it's dictated or been formed in one way or another, or they've adopted as a form of reality. It starts to shake all of that. And then, a lot of times we have such conviction about something that plays out in our life, and then certain events will actually create such intensities that it will allow us to break out of it. And then you start looking at it and say, okay, now I have a whole complete different viewpoint of this. Right? And this whole idea of black and white, of different nationalities, one group versus refugees and so forth, those lines that you were talking about, creating separation, that's what's going to bring everybody together. Is enough of those separations, realizing, wait a minute, the more we're separated, the more we are out of sync, and it feels very uncomfortable, but you also notice things don't work well, and there's a ton of energy energy and consciousness or attention put into this fears, and put into I got to be careful what I do or don't do, or that we give power to, say, the control structures and so forth. Well, all of this will change as we go through it. So it's just saying, okay, we're not going to play this game anymore. How can we look at a different way to do this? How is a different way? Because people will feel the draw, because we're naturally designed to cooperate, designed to collaborate, we're designed as one unit, all having different experiences, and seeing that each one of us is a contributor to everything that's playing out, including all events all over the world. Now, does it have to be this way? At this point, it does, because of the fact that that's what's taking us out of the complacency, and also out of the the stuck state that we are in, or the patterns that we've adopted. But the moment we start to do more and more of that, none of this is required. The only reason anything plays out is because it helps or assists for the greater good. I know it sometimes people find that very difficult. What do you mean? Bombing places, doing these things that are going to be for the betterment of mankind? It almost doesn't make sense at a logical mind. But in essence, you see that by doing that, it actually allows us to break our patterns, and then it is better for all humanity, because in essence we see the chaos, the insanity, to the point to say enough is enough. We're not going to play with this anymore. And then huge shifts take place. It's not going to be, little baby steps anymore. It's going to be huge steps.
I'm ready. I'm getting kind of, I don't know. I mentioned there in the intro about, all these masters in waiting on the planet. The concerted effort and energy by, some of these people who have advanced themselves far enough to have a huge effect. I can feel them out there in slumber. Some of it's light slumber, and some of it's pretty freaking awake. But there's no real concerted effort there. I don't know. And I think there's some, I don't know. I keep getting this clairaudient thing on a mass scale that is tickling my mind as something that will work.
Mm-hmm.
Have you heard of projecting a clairaudient message? I mean, a forced projection.
Well, there is forced projection and there's automatic projection, because in essence we're always projecting. So everything that you realize, any of us, at this point in time, every single realization that we have, every aha moment, every new level of knowing and understanding that we have is automatically uploaded into the collective.
Right.
Now, we're all masters, of course, but at the same time, we're all at different levels. Now, the ones that actually have gone to a level where their level of understanding is higher, their way that they process events or experiences and so forth and realizations, of course, they're adding more and more of that level of understanding into the collective, made available for every single aspect or every single soul on the planet at this point in time to be able to access it. Now, everybody has that access all the time. It doesn't actually require effort. So, the ones that are, the forerunners and so forth, may not at times be, going out there preaching, if you want to call it that, or, shaking the world in a sense, but their observation, what they're seeing, experiencing, and so forth, and how they're interpreting all of that, and how they are transmitting that without, conscious effort of it, but just living through that, is already creating a huge change. For example, if we had to take a household with a set of parents and you have kids, now there's two ways to do it. Say the kids are out there, being in the family dynamics, playing a particular role and so forth. And of course, the parents may not agree with their decisions or how they want to play. So in essence, the parents could turn around and say, okay, I don't want you to do that. That's not acceptable, and try to push them and push them and push them. And of course, the child becomes rebellious. The child starts to react, and then will do in spite what they were asked not to do, in a sense. Or, in secrecy, will be able to, do things behind the parents' back and whatever it is, they'll still go out and do it. However, if the interaction changed and the interaction was, okay, the children are doing that particular experience, and you have a conversation with the children and say, listen, it's very interesting that you're having these particular types of experience and the choices that you're making. You realize that, these particular choices have various levels of consequences, and whatever is going to serve you is going to serve you. However, you can pay attention, you like, or you can do whatever you want to do. But at this point in time, you're responsible for how you're going to experience whatever's going to take place. And if you need to go down this road and you got to bump your head against the wall a few times, I love you, and go out and do it. And if you need any help with it, I'll help you, right? But if at some point you choose to redirect, and if I can facilitate and assist you in any particular way, I am always here to support you in whatever direction you want to go. And you'll notice that there was a cooperation. There's a very strong connection that is established rather than resilient and rebellious and reacting. It's more, okay, first of all, I'm getting respected. Second of all, I'm being honored for whatever choices I make. And yeah, they're reminding me that whatever choice I make is going to be my experience, and I have to deal with it, right? Whatever that may be.
It's all how you use it, right?
Yeah, exactly. And this is what's happening on a collective scale. So all the ones that are a little bit more advanced, the changes are occurring within them. First of all, so they're changing their viewpoint. They're dissolving a lot of their beliefs, programs, and processes or default programs and so forth or patterns that they have taken in. They start to open their eyes in a sense of having a higher and higher level of understanding, and then just their thought forms of how they process and how they see things are being interjected into the collective and made available. So in essence, what's happening is all this chaos is happening. Anyone that is in an advanced state will not intervene to the point where it says, oh no, we got to straighten everybody else. We got to fix everybody. We got to put them back on track. It would be more, okay, let them have their experiences, except at the same time, we're going to hold this space of a higher consciousness, a higher vibration, and a higher way of seeing and understanding, and we'll continue to allow that to be transmitted. And once they get to the point where they achieve their whatever you want to call it, saturation point of whatever polarity experience they had, then they're going to be much open to having the opposite side of things, where they're going to come in and be part of that. And this is actually works in expediting the awakening process, because if you notice, more and more people are shifting. Okay, granted, there's energies that are coming through, different levels of consciousness being transmitted and so forth. However, it's the forerunners that have been here, the ones that are starseeds, the ones that are, indigos and so forth, and also the ones that are the souls that are more advanced. that they're living life differently. They're doing their part, even though it is not on a mass scale, or it doesn't look like on a mass scale on a physical representation. But at the same time, what they're doing is actually a very powerful wave of transformation, and which is more and more people, as you can see, like a domino effect, are awakening and even coming out of complete slumber to the point of be able to actually say, oh, wait a minute here, I want to be part of this, and I'm now taking a different role than I was taking before. So that's how it works. So, and then everything else that's playing out around, of course, it has absolute perfection, because you have to understand, nothing's going to ever occur, no matter what, even a World War III, if that was even the case to be, would not be there in vain, or would be there as a negative effect. It will look like that way, and whoever checked out, or what you call died from that interaction and so forth, would be souls, only the ones that want to leave anyways. But at the same time, whatever would play out would be for the highest good. So there's always monitoring on a collective scale, and that means all the souls are communicating back and forth that are on the planet, saying, okay, what would be best at this time to create a shift in pattern change within our operating system on a human aspect. And then, of course, it's also interacting with other beings that are our brother, sister souls that are either non-form or are in form, but are projecting from other planets or so forth, where they have that higher consciousness. And you see that certain things are play out. Like, for example, the bombing, before anything plays out, even if somebody gets the idea, it cannot be orchestrated. It cannot be played out unless there's an agreement with the participants that are getting involved, and plus the collective saying, you know, this is going to be beneficial because it's going to create another wave of transformation, another wave of, at first it'll look like insanity or, fear or whatever it may be, but in essence it's another wave of change. Now, of course, something like World War III, you look at it and say, well, no, that would be very disruptive. That would be very negative intense. Would it create an awakening? Yes, but it would be aftermath, and the aftermath is not worth it, because at this point in time is not conducive to the direction the souls need to go, and at times it would delay the process. So then that would not take place, because either it's interfered by the weaponry, or it's interfered by the intelligence organization and so forth, or it's interfered by the actual individuals that would be engaged in those wars that will choose otherwise. So in essence, no matter what, it would be orchestrated in such a way that it wouldn't take place. And that's really one of the cases, because World War III is not in the plans at this point in time as a favorable thing to do. However, these smaller things, they can be favorable, and they are favorable, but the only reason they're going to play out is that it's going to serve in some way.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah, I agree with all of that. It's man, what an interesting time to be here, Franco.
Mm-hmm.
And coming from witnessing it from a different perspective than, I definitely one different one I had 30 years ago, before my proverbial 2x4. But so we wanted to we kind of shift gears here a little bit. We wanted to talk about the spiritual hierarchy and understand it a little bit better, especially in light of a couple of the shows that we've had on recently. We just did a show on angels, and there's so much out there, and there's so many resources there for us to be able to tap into. I wanted to pick your brain a bit on your insights on the spiritual hierarchy. I mean, I know there's a lot of different names for a lot of these different things. So I guess go with what you're familiar with and most comfortable with, obviously.
Okay, well, you guys can help me direct it if it's something else you want to cover while we're going through it. Interesting enough, the word hierarchy, in essence, is a construct, because in essence, believe it or not, there is no hierarchy. Period. As shocking as that sounds, every single soul is equal. every single soul is here to play a role. To believe it or not, in an essence, and this is going to be a mind twist, the ones that are on the ground, that have chosen to take on a physicality in a very dense state and have been playing on a very polarized and very asleep state, is actually highly honored and respected, because those were the brave souls that said, okay, I'm going to go into the thick and thin of this. I'm going to totally forget every aspect of my own knowing and connection of who I truly am, and I'm going to play such a role, get lost in my role so deeply that I won't even recognize any facet of it along the way. Where you have the angelic realms, and of course you have the masters and so forth, in essence, they haven't chosen to do that, and they are more as a facilitator for the ground workers, if you want to call it. So, in essence, when you look at it, realistically, there is no hierarchy. Everyone is equal, but at the same time, everyone's playing a different role to support the whole, because the whole is basically, no matter what is done by any individual soul, it's still part of the whole. In essence, the only way completion is taking place is that every facet fits in perfectly. So you take the angelic realms, or you take any levels of masters, or you take any beings that are in form and non-form, the ones that are in different dimensions and so forth. You have to understand they're all facets of ourselves, all have chosen to go out and play different roles. Some may be supporting groups, for example. If you take the angelic realm that's assisting planet Earth, then they have chosen, okay, we're not going to take on form, but at the same time, we can project whatever we need to, but we're going to assist our brother, sister souls so that they can do what we can do, because it upgrades us too. And the same thing with beings from other planets. They choose to come here and say, okay, well, it's going to be exciting to go and see what's going on another playground, schoolyard, which we've never engaged. We may choose to take on a physicality. We may choose not to take on a physicality. But it's equal. In a sense, is, okay, I may have higher level of consciousness only because of the fact that I may have not put as many veils on as of forgetfulness, or that I have gone through certain areas of experiences and also projections or taking on form that was more conducive and more supportive in removing these layers. So my experience wasn't so slow and restricted. It was much more free-flowing. So in essence, I remember who I am much more than I would have being off on a planet that was much more intense, which planet Earth happens to be one of them. So, in essence, even if you're going to source, which basically source is everything and is the main consciousness that resides in all of us, because we're basically all source, or what you can call God or whatever it is. And then even the ones that were the creators, okay? The way it works is that there was a group of species of beings that have, and when I say species, they're not really species. They only take on a certain species so that they can, take on form and play in the world of form. But at the same time, everyone is non-form, and really what everything is around us is just a field of energy with potential consciousness that we utilize that and create the illusionary form, or what we call holographic form, so that we can experience ourselves. So even the ones that have created the planets, for example, and have created different species of, like, even say humans, they're not any hierarchy than we are, or they're not our masters. They are the keepers of this particular design of physicalities that come on the planet, but the actual souls are completely equal. And even if they know how we were constructed and how it was involved to put together, the idea of them being better, it doesn't exist. It doesn't exist. It is equal at all levels. Now, there was a period of time, and there was still some period of time, where a lack of consciousness and a lack of awareness had created other forms of ego that have started to create illusionary power structures and hierarchy. saying, well, we're the masters and you report to us and we tell you what to do and we need to be honored and all of that. That was done in the polarized world. That was done in the so-called egotistic world. And ego, if I call it that, ego, it's, of course, is a different form on different planets. Not all the planets have them anymore, or different species have them anymore. But the ones that decided to keep it and to want to be, governors or, power hungry, role players, if you want to call it that. Again, it's still a role, but but it's not, it's an illusion. It's the same way as our hierarchy that we have on planet Earth. It's all an illusion.
Right.
Yeah.
Well,
you take any the presidents, or you take any governor, or you take anybody in any role of authority. Really, who are they? They're just another one like us. That a title was slapped on them, but it's fictional. It's just say, okay, well, we agreed upon that Obama's going to be the president, and that he's going to have such and such power, whatever that may be. And, the banksters have this and the other, role players have whatever, but it's not real. None of it is real. The fact is that we've agreed upon to allow them to play that role. But the moment we turned around, I can tell you right now, guys, the moment we turn around and say, hey, listen, we're done with all these particular role players and, hierarchy and rulers, gone.
I agree.
There's nothing to back it up. There's nobody going to turn around and say, oh, listen, I got a certificate here that says that I'm a king or a queen, or that I'm, president for the next 50 years or anything of that nature. No one can prove anything because no one gave that, and there's no one to give it.
Right. No, I agree that with all of that, Franco. But within the metaphor of life that we live, there's a hierarchy here on the planet, and there's a hierarchy within the etheric realms. In particular, there's the angelic hierarchy, and I know many people on the planet actually invoke or evoke these different angels for different things, and they get results. I mean, it's a real deal that they're accessing either beings or energies, one or the other, so I think
Correct.
some of them are fall in both those categories. But I understand that it's all, fundamentally it's metaphor, both here and there. It's all metaphor designed to get us to a point of awareness and consciousness to where we are completely and truly the sovereign beings that we're designed to be.
Correct.
But within the metaphor, what's your understanding of that hierarchy? In what other terms you prefer to address angels or masters or whichever set of descriptors you want to use?
Right. Okay. Well, you can. It's okay. We've created the ground that everything is equal. However, there are souls that are in different physicalities and so forth, or non-form, that have taken on roles that are facilitators, and they have access to things that we may not have access because we're still in a human form and we still have human beliefs. But at a higher aspect of who we are, we can do the same thing as anybody else can do. Even the masters have said, you can do everything that I've done and shown, and more, right?
Yeah.
Because it's true. However, while we're in the state that we can't access it because we're still in disbelief, or we're still feeling ourselves less than, or that we feel compromised, or we bought into the physical form as limits, then of course we can invoke or bring in angelic realms, or angels, if you want to call it that, or guides.
I see all these things as like rungs on the ladder to get you to another place, right?
Well, it's like this. Let me give you a very simple analogy. You can go to school, and say that you're in grade 5. Now, your school has students in grade 8, and the school has teachers or professors, or whatever you want to call them. And now, the thing is, as a grade 5, you may not have the same capacity to understand certain things. So you're going to ask somebody in grade 8 that has already gone through that and may give you tidbits of how to do it. Or you go to the teacher or to the lecturer or whoever you're going to talk to at that point in time, and we'll be able to give you some more information. Is it a hierarchy? No. In essence, they're at a different position where they've already walked through the same channels,
Right.
so they're sharing information to help you, like you said, okay, climb up the run of the ladder. The ladder is really, at the top of the ladder is just basically realizing that you remember who you are. You basically see yourself as a source. But while you're at the lower rungs, if you want to call that a lower vibration, you don't have the same capacity of access. So you're going to ask someone higher up in the ladder saying, by the way, I don't understand this, or I don't know how to deal with this, or I'm really stuck here. Can you help me? My health is compromised or whatever it is, and I can't seem to access it because of where I'm at right now. Can you facilitate? And then they would step in and say, okay, this is what we can do. I can create an opening for you. I can share certain things that you need to shift within yourself, and then go from there. And the same thing you would do from someone higher up on the ladder. Or the analogy I gave you, from grade 5, you're asking someone in grade 6 or 7 or 8, or even asking the professor, or asking, a teacher or principal. Well, maybe not a principal at this point in time.
Right.
But a guidance counselor, whoever, for some clarity, for some more information, for some guidance, for, whatever, right? So that's how it really works. So when somebody is not able to access something because of what is playing out, they can call out different, higher up in the ladder, if you want to call it. And just the difference is really more awareness, more accessibility. That's really what it is. So, there are souls that are in non-formal form, which are in the angelic realms or in the, guide realm, that are specifically doing just that role. They have chosen to facilitate the ones that are on the ground or the ones that are in the holographic experience on the planet doing the experience. So in essence, they will share, because their viewpoint is very different than our viewpoint too, you have to understand. Because in essence, when you're looking, it's like this. When you are the player on the football field, for example, you have the viewpoint of what you can see around you, but you're there, and you're also in a position to guard yourself, because either they're going to attack you to knock you down so that you can't do the run, or in some way interfere, or, you have to strategize wherever you are. However, somebody in the audience, or somebody that is overseeing, like if you call it a referee or whatever you want to call it, but someone that can see the big picture of the whole, of everybody, how everybody's moving and how everybody's planning, of course can say to you, if you had a little transmitter in your ear, say, somebody's planning on the left part of that field, they're going to come and charge you and so forth. You may want to, go a different direction, or you may want to prepare yourself for it, or something of that nature, or just give you some information of how you can actually shift. You say, well, I've been knocked down so many times. What is your tip? Well, you seem to go back into the same pattern because I keep seeing you going in the same direction. Maybe you may have to step back, revert, and go in a different direction. It's that type of instructions that you would get. And like you said, you will get results because in essence, they're not caught in the game. They can give you not only a bird's eye view, but they're also giving you a viewpoint of seeing the whole game, how it actually plays out, and then the understanding of everybody's roles within the game. So that's how it kind of works with when you're accessing guides, when you're accessing masters, when you're accessing angelic realms. Each play a different role, and each one is there to facilitate you in one way or another, to give you something that you may not be able to see completely. Now, of course, as you become more and more conscious, you will be in one way or another assisting yourself rather than utilizing the masters or anybody else as much as before. You still may access it at times. Now, at the same time, as you're becoming more aware, you unconsciously, in most cases, are affecting a large amount of people around you all the time, or even around the world, just because your understanding, your consciousness. So soul to soul, there's always communication. So for example, you have a friend of yours that is having a challenge. Okay? So on a physical plane, they can't figure it out. The soul may not have access to a higher consciousness enough because it has too many veils. However, it's going to broadcast to you, knowing that you have experienced some of this, and say, listen, can you help me out here? Can you tell me what you did? What do you see that I can't see at this point in time that you can share? And then that would be transmitted from soul to soul, and it'll be transmitted right into the mind, the right brain first, and then it's transmitted to the left brain, and it starts to play out as your projection of whatever you're playing out. So in actual fact, unconsciously, you're helping a lot of people. People will call on you from soul to soul and not realize that that's taking place. Now, of course, as you become conscious, you become more aware of it, and you get to see, oh, okay, I'm getting a request from here and a request from there, and you can actually hear what the request is, in a sense, or hear it, or be able to see the thought forms within it, and your reply. I mean, it was fascinating when I had that experience years ago, and I mean, it still happens, but I'm not as fascinated as before. But I remember sometimes I'd be doing something very monotonous, if you want to call it that, something that didn't take really a lot of thinking to do, and I can hear people asking questions. They weren't anywhere near me. They were in different parts of the world. They would say, oh, can you help me on this? I don't understand this, this, and this, and this. And then my mind would be, my soul would be communicating, but I would hear it in my mind. So I can hear the dialogue, the question, the answer. And there was many times, I can tell you guys, I hear the answer coming out of my mind, and I'm going, wow, that's a good answer. I got to keep that in mind because I could utilize something like that on a show or something of that nature, right? But you become more aware of that. So in actual fact, everybody's assisting one another one way or another. Even when, let me give you this one. This one will be interesting for you. Even if somebody's having a very, what you can call dense, intense experience, and say yourself, I'm just giving you an example here. You yourself seeing somebody that is being tortured, okay, or being abused. Now, you're saying, it would be an interesting experience. However, I don't really want to create it in my reality in a physical aspect and be engaged in all of that because I really don't need it. I don't need the intensities and all that stuff. I don't need all of it. But I would really like to feel what that feels like. Temporarily, just for even a minute, 2 minutes, 5 minutes, whatever it is. And so you can actually transmit unconsciously to that person, connect with them, be able to almost feel what they're feeling in their body, feel in their, be able to see and even the process, the thought forms that they're having, how the dialogue that they're having themselves, and be able to take excerpts of that within yourself and expand your repertoire of experiences. And you didn't even have to experience it by just tapping into someone having a lower state. Or you can do that with somebody having a higher state or somebody even on an equal plane, but just having different vantage points. So you can be in a room with, say, equal-minded, or there's another word for it, like-minded, that's the word. Right. Okay, like-minded people, and you're having this dialogue back and forth, but at the same time, you start to say, well, I would like to see how that viewpoint would be from that person's perspective or this other person's perspective. You'll be able to tap into that. And you may not be always conscious of it, but as you become more aware, you will become more conscious. You would be able to see through people's eyes, like you're almost like stepping into them without doing any of that, but you can actually tap into them and see how they're thinking, how they're feeling, what's being triggered and so forth. And you can bring it in and say, oh, I can use this and this and this and to add to my experience, but the rest of it I don't need. And you'll see that you can now see a vantage point. So for example, a particular event occurs. Say this, an event occurs in an area. You can now see what other people are thinking or feeling or how they're representing whatever that event that occurred looks to them, so that you can get different perspectives to be utilized as part of your own, if you wanted to, or be able to have more awareness gained without going through the actual experience yourself by tapping into others. So this is all occurring all the time, and we're just not aware of it. So when you look at it in that viewpoint, you also notice that you take the angelic realms, as much as they have whatever access they have and you're assisting, you doing what you're doing and what others are doing on the planet here is a huge advantage to them, because in essence, they're learning, growing, and expanding because of it.
Mhm.
They're tapping into you and they're saying, okay, great. I now know, without taking form, how it feels. Not only how it feels, what I can gain as consciousness, so that when it shares with you next time or it shares with others, it actually has even a more expanded viewpoint, because it has an even deeper understanding. Because what happened before, to give you an idea, a lot of the angelic realms that were involved on the planet really never had a good basis of the human experience. So a lot of times the information they gave was not so pertinent in adopting it to our human experience and creating a shift within our human experience, because it was out of the range that we would understand, because in essence we were going through certain levels of intensities that they had no understanding of.
Right.
Because when we're caught in the emotional aspect, it takes us for a ride. And that was something they didn't understand. So it became very clear some time ago, and it hasn't been all that long, that it was very important for them to interact much more. And some of them have taken on form. There's quite a few of the angelic forms that have taken on human forms, have come onto the planet and are living somewhat of a human, while having that one particular channel to the whole cluster of, say, angelic realms, in the area that they're working in, to be able to feed back to them. But at the same time, they've been much more adaptive in be able to tap into people and be able to download our experiences, so that they have a more deeper understanding of what we go through and how we have to process things, so that when they do provide assistance, it is not, outside of the range of our capacity to understand it or to assimilate it. It'd be much more closer to what we can adopt.
Right.
Yeah.
So do angels have souls?
Yes,
They do.
they do.
So are they on an evolution path or a
Correct.
awakening
Yes.
path also?
Yes. Yes. Not, the one thing we understand is that not all souls will choose starting from zero and moving up. They start at all levels of the ladder, if you want to call it that, because I like your analogy. So at different levels, and say, okay, I don't need to go right down to the third dimensional consciousness where I don't know who I am totally and take on a form and reincarnate over and over again, or keep, projecting holographic experiences, taking little tidbits and growing further. I really want to only go to this level. I still want to maintain a certain remembrance of who I am, and then so forth. Now, there are souls, angelic souls that have had experiences on different realms and different dimensions, where it was, they took on form, but the form was not the same degree as we have. And a lot of times form is you can't relate it because it's very different. It doesn't have the same level of intensity and sensorial capacity or anything of that nature. But yes, even masters, they're all souls that have, are playing different roles. Even the non-forms are just basically souls without taking on form. They can project anything they would like to, as we do, except that we stay on one channel for most of in one incarnation, we call it incarnation, but it's really not incarnation. But through this projection, we stick to the projection for whatever term that we choose to be projecting on planet Earth, right? So they may be able to do temporary projection. Now, I don't know if you guys have had the experience, but sometimes if you're walking down the street or in a mall or in a group, sometimes you meet somebody that you didn't see there before. Like you scope the whole room and you scope the area, you never saw them, and all of a sudden they're there.
Right.
And you may have a communication with them or whatever it is. And then within seconds, you might just turn around and then they're gone.
Gone. Right.
And nobody's even seen them. Right?
Right.
Because you could turn around to your friend and say, do you see the person I was talking to? What are you talking about? Right? Because they've temporarily projected for you.
Right.
Because that interaction was required to assist you at that point in time. So they did a temporary projection. and a temporary projection that only had a certain band of frequency that you can only interpret through your mind. So they see your signature and they project within that really tight band so that you would be able to see them and no one else would.
Yeah, been there, done that.
There you go.
Got a T-shirt.
Perfect. There you go.
Yeah. Yeah.
So Franco, do you think that when we move on from this realm that we can choose to be angels in a sense?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, the categorization of who can take on whatever role has been really opened up a lot. So in essence, what happens is if you go through enough lifetimes or you go through experiences where you become in enough state of enlightenment where you feel at a soul level, I don't need to project a holographic form or reincarnate. Let's call it that for people's understanding. I don't feel like I need to reincarnate any longer. However, I want to play at the capacity of assisting my brother, sister souls that are choosing to incarnate or are incarnated already. Then you can take that role as a guide. You could take on a role as part of the angelic realm. You can take on a role as so-called master within that craft or that experience. And the masters, again, when you're talking about that, the question is the master of what? Of what dimension? Because a master of one dimension is not a master in a different, because in essence it doesn't have that skills. For example, you take a mathematical teacher, he may be a professor in mathematics, but he's not going to know too much about geography. He knows some, but he's not a master in it because he mastered in one field. It's the same thing with the angelic realms, and for masters, they've mastered one particular or a few closely clustered dimensions, so they would be expertise in there, and they would only facilitate in those areas. Because in other areas, they're considered, maybe an advanced soul to a certain degree, but they don't have the master role.
Right.
So with souls, incarnating, either coming to the third dimension to incarnate, or souls choosing not to go into that dense of a level, and taking on the angelic realm instead. When the souls that do incarnate on the third dimension, so before they can get to that status, they have to regain more of their awareness first. So it's not as as soon as they pass, they have the option then to become more aware, I guess.
Well, the option's always there. However, what happens is when you have a lot of veils, you don't see that option that easily.
Yeah.
In a sense, because you with the amount of veils that you may have that's still allowing you to access third dimension, you would see that as almost the only choice or limited into that range. So you wouldn't be turn around and say, "Oh, I'm going to go into the angelic realm." You'd say, "No, I want to go back and I want to finish some more of what I was doing."
Yeah.
Because you have to understand, in the non-form state, your viewpoint, your decision point, is very different than when you are in a physical form and you have a mind construct that is programmed to respond and work a certain way. So what you would judge as bad or good or beautiful or ugly or anything of that nature, or right or wrong, in any way, at this point in time, at a mind level, at a soul level, you wouldn't see any of that. You would see absolute perfection in all of it, and everything is an opportunity for you to learn and grow within. And it's just like, oh, great, fantastic, I want to go take on that role. So when you're looking at it, a soul is leaves the physicality and says, okay, what do I want to do next? It looks at its list and say, well, I tentatively desire to achieve all these types of experiences because this is how I want to remove my veils, and this is how I want to go through the process of enlightenment. And they may encode themselves to stay within the path. So at that point in time, it's just going to continue to project, or what you can call holographically project, themselves, or incarnate, if you want to call it that too, incarnate into a different role that is still carrying on where they left off, but able to come from a different vantage point or coming in from a different, what do you call it, physical expression and so forth, which has a whole sequence of other operating systems to do so. Now, the difference at this point in time, and this is what is important to understand, has changed, is that that's how it used to work much more clearly before. Now, the souls that are leaving the planet, anyone that leaves the planet, will go through what we call a sequence of light realms. And what light realms means is you're exposed to different frequencies, and it alters the intensities and rigidity and locked in signatures that you have taken on as a soul. So in essence, if you're taking on, let's call it baggage for the lack of better words at the moment, if you're still taking baggage or memory of past lives or memories of unfinished business, imprints within the soul memory capacity, or what we call, there's another word for it, I can't think of it right now. But anyways, if you have any of that, going through the light realms, you basically get an infusion of consciousness and awareness to be able to decide what you want to keep and not keep, and shed the rest, and realize at this point in time also erasing any of the stuff that doesn't matter anymore because things have changed. So even if you say in the year 1200 you've had a life of a particular experience that you still haven't really cleared, and you still wanted to complete that, you're going to look at that and see if it's still applicable and it's still beneficial, or can I use the experiences of other aspects of myself or other brothers and sisters souls to complete that without going out and reincarnate and bring all that stuff from the 1200 the time of 1200 back, even though it's never going to be the same, but whatever that was there, like slavery or whatever it may have been at that time, or so you're going to do that. So the light realm right now is to erase any patterns that you need to keep coming back here, that in essence anything that's unfinished you erase or expedite through by utilizing other resources. And then at that point in time you have actually much more freedom to redesign the path that you're going to be on. So you may choose not to reincarnate, or you may choose to reincarnate on a completely different planet, on a completely different dimension, or you may just decide to say, hey, I want to join the union of angelic realm, or the I want to go and unify with some other, or I just want to be a guide at this point in time. Because many times us have not, like for example, even yourselves, have not incarnated each and every time. There have been times you say, oh, listen, I'm going to step back this time. I'm just going to play the role of a guide.
Right.
I don't want to really go back down there, because as I'm being a guide, I get to watch other people. So I get experiences of a lot more souls at the same time. But at the same time, while I'm assisting and seeing that, I'm actually increasing my own level of consciousness and awareness, so that when I do choose to reincarnate and go back into it, I'm not going to be going in the same way I did before. So I will be much more skilled, if you want to call it that, to experience it. So there's so many facets. I mean, this can be a whole topic in itself. But how much do we really need to know at this point? I mean, I'm completely open to cover anything you'd like, because there's a lot there. And it's not that often that I get questions like this, and because in essence, most people are concerned with day-to-day life and how we're going to survive through this or make it through this and so forth. But it's really great to know that, some of the things that we talked about, because it really opens us up, and it takes us some more out of the box, because a lot of us have got caught up in the idea on a collective scale that this is all there is. This human existence, and it's about suffering, it's about struggling, it's about, gaining respect or power, or, amassing material stuff or something like that, and see it as that, or the fact of seeing that, this is not only this is all exists, that we're so small, that we are so limited, and then there's, we're just insignificant or anything of that nature. But when you get to play and see how much more there is, and really there is no limitations except for what we've created as an illusion of limitation, it really changes the viewpoint of how we play the game on planet Earth.
Right.
With a higher realization and understanding, the game that we play on Earth in being in a human form changes drastically because we don't take it so seriously.
Yeah.
We don't engage in the same capacity as we have in the past. And you can see that you actually are the master of your own design and that you can change any part of it at any time.
Yep.
And there's more to it. This is not the end of it. This is the other thing. There are a lot of people get caught up, and I'm sure you guys have noticed, about living in this life and the fear of death. When the fear of death only is in the mind level because it was programmed and conditioned. But at a soul level or even a higher level of understanding, because as you become aware, you see that there is no such thing as death.
Right.
You just stop projecting one holographic projection and you take on another, or you go non-projection for a while, but you always exist and you're always this field of consciousness. You're already all there is, period, as source and as the energy that creates anything and everything.
Yeah. Wow.
And one
A lot
adventure,
there.
yeah, and one adventure prepares us for the next.
Yeah,
That's all it is.
Yep. Yeah. So we're at the top of the hour, Franco. Guys at francodenicola.com. If you've made it this far into the show, as heavy as this material is, then you already know where that website is, I think. So if you're out there listening on one of the other formats, the iTunes, the Vimos, the YouTubes, or wherever this landed, and you want to check out some more, for the price of a simple espresso once a month, you can become a member of the 100th Monkey Radio and help support bringing you guys guests like Franco DeNicola. All right, we will be back for hour 2 and continue this amazing conversation. Mm-hmm. Condemnation without investigation is the height of ignorance.
Change the way you look at things, and the things you look at change.
Namaste.